there, welcome back. I'm now going to talk about Following and Insomnia, two early Chris Nolan films that are not as well known as his later films. These are the underrated films of his career, the ones that, these came either side of Memento, which was the big film for him that pushed him forward. Insomnia was his first studio film, and Following was his first film, which he made on very low budget, and with, he was buying film from working, and then shooting it on weekends, and he just structured it out so he could make the film, and it took a year to make, and basically it got him attention in a way that a lot of films made at that time didn't get attention made in the same way. He kind of got attention because it was an interesting film. You can see it was a film by a director with talent, but it was kind of like Kubrick and Killer's Kiss in the sense of you can see a lot of the flaws at the same time in the film. It was like there was a interesting part of the film, and there was a film section which was much more traditional femme fatale, film noir, that was very much influenced by those kind of films, and you could see all the twists coming with that bit. But what was good about it was in black and white, so you had an atmosphere that would help cover its low budget nature, and it would give a certain mood to the noir qualities and the sense of depression, the sense of a life not going well, and the obsessive nature of this lead character. So you got a lot of interesting things, because the lead character could be diffident and be not sure of himself, but the black and white would sell the fact that he's actually quietly obsessive. So it wasn't just a performance doing it, it was the mood of the film doing it as well. That all kind of worked in the sense of a guy who became obsessed with following people and watching lives, because he didn't really have one of his own. He's thinking of a writer, but he's not really doing much there. He's unemployed, he just doesn't have much, going for him. He's just not really anything going for him. And it's about how he gets hooked up to this thief who wanders around the city, breaking into homes and stealing stuff, and then basically that world of basically being doing breaking entry, and how that evolves into something much darker, involving a femme fatale and murder and things like that. Which is, now Nolan says he wrote the film traditionally, and then he switched it around a bit to make it even though the plan was always to make it non-linear, he wrote it linear and then made it non-linear in editing the script before he showed it to anybody. And he's never done that again because he thought it was a problem, because it actually made it hard. It just didn't really work for him. It doesn't really work for the film either, because you get a sense of there's some scenes that really work, and then there's other scenes that really don't work, and the traditional scenes don't really work as well. And doing non-linear stuff doesn't help. It actually means you're losing the interaction of what's going on, so you're just seeing it from the distorted version of this guy. So the potential pleasures of trying to work something out is taken away because you're in this distorted view, and they haven't worked out a way. Nolan hasn't worked out a way to make that work within the non-linear narrative, because he's got a very traditional story. So he hasn't rejiggered the story to take into account how he's telling it. So it becomes frustrating in the second half at times. And it's a really weird thing, because the first third of the film really worked. It's really cool. You can tell it's non-linear, but it's actually working. It keeps you interested. It gives a sense of the world and the point of view of the character, the point of view of the other characters he meets. You do get a sense of it. And then the plot kicks in with this woman, and it just feels something very traditional. It's like it goes from a film that's flying to a film that's boom. And it builds up from there again, but the introduction of that narrative doesn't work. It just plummets the film down to a far lower level, because he doesn't find a clever way of actually introducing that character and that problem in a way that will keep the intrigue going. Instead, it becomes this thing of, yeah, I see where this is going. And so he never finds the cleverness that would have set up the rest of the story to be fine. It just becomes like you're trying something really ambitious and you're doing something really cliched. And those two things, if you're doing one thing and then you go to the other one just looks bad more because your expectation is much higher, and suddenly it's like, oh, you went that way. So that's the big problem with Following, in the sense the femme fatale story, even though the actors are enjoyable, it's not written in a way that's wonderfully intriguing. It's just like, yeah, you've seen these films, I've seen these films, we've all seen these films. You haven't found that little thing that makes it intriguing to get through those scenes to get to the twists. Like the scenes where you need to be engaged, really engaged in watching them, aren't really there because one character's so recessive and the woman is obviously mysterious. So there's no, like, character point between them that makes you go, oh, I'm interested in this. Instead, it's like outside plot mechanics try to do the job of something from the characters that are not really doing that job, so the dialogue isn't that good. It just feels like very rote, and it just like there's something missing for an interaction that actually would make it jump to the next level. There's some motivation that's not there that you really needed to be there to get the sense of her getting him interested and him interested in her. Instead, it's like it's accepted that they're interested in each other because that's a cliche, and it doesn't work. So that's the main problem with it, is that certain relationship. There's something missing in the writing that doesn't work that would have made that middle section work. The final section, I could roughly see where it was going, but it's still enjoyable. I mean, the film remains enjoyable even though they have that problem. But it's just that the middle section takes away from what's so enjoyable about the first section, which where really was flying, and then the middle section really wasn't. So it's that kind of weird mismatch. Because it's very different from other Nolan films, which are more distant. This one, it was much more in the head of this guy, and very obsessive and very much working, level of a working stiff type of environment where it's very working class environment in London rather than Oppenheimer or something like that. So it becomes the environment they're shooting in became part of the character. So that was the problem with Following. But the film is still enjoyable. It is fairly short. I think it's like 70 minutes. It's well done. It's just like there is that flaw. But the 101 collection is very good. You get the film, you get a commentary by critics talking about it. Nolan and his wife both have interviews on it, which are fairly substantial, and you get the actors talking as well. So you get a lot of stuff in this to talk about the film. So it is a very good, it's a very worthwhile buy for 101 Films. Then we have Insomnia, which is his follow-up, Nolan's follow-up to Memento before he did Batman. So this was the film where it had Following, which people had seen and sort of like, then he had Memento, which blew him all up to be the indie darling. So this is his first take on the studio system. It's like, well, can he work in the studio or will he be an independent director? Sort of like Aronofsky, who goes back and forth but is still kind of fairly indie. So this is his chance to prove himself to the studio. So he went to Warner Brothers and made Insomnia, which is a very good film. Now initially when I saw it, I wasn't that impressed because it'd come after Memento. Memento was a really impressive film and really inventive, and this film was much more traditional. But once you realise it's much more traditional, it is very enjoyable because it actually does what Following doesn't do, which is take what traditions of genre can be and actually use the acting, use the writing and the atmosphere to actually bring out the interesting parts of the situation. So it's two films in Like he's done 2 films, now he's into the third, and he's a bigger studio system behind him. He can do things with stunts and atmosphere, and it's a much more impressive film. And he's Al Pacino in the lead, and Pacino is actually fairly buttoned down, and he's not yelling or anything. He's playing like a character who's in distress, and Robin Williams is a villain, and he's playing a character who thinks he's really smart, and he's much more toned down as well. And there's that sense of, there's a doom-laden sense because it's set in Alaska. The sun's up all day, and people can barely get to sleep, and it's driving Pacino nuts. He's got a problem with internal affairs back home, and early on in the investigation, his partner who's with him, who could actually finger him for some crimes at home, is shot during a chase, and it's like, Pacino did it, but was it intentional, was it not? And you never quite know, and even he's not quite sure. But the serial killer saw it, and the idea is the serial killer is going to manipulate him throughout the film. And basically, the story is of him falling apart, and it's the choices he makes within this situation, and how it spirals worse and worse, and you're seeing his character through the situations, the things he does right, the things he does wrong, and the whole film is those decisions plus the atmosphere and how he's getting messed about by his decisions in the past and his decisions during a time when his brain's not working because he can't get any sleep and he can barely stay awake, and he's just trying his best to keep up momentum, and just not get caught out, and he's failing. And it's a really well made film. It's one of those films when you go back to and not expect Memento, it actually works really well. Pacino's good, Robin Williams is good. I'm not even a Robin Williams fan really, because it tends to be a bit too much for me, but he's really good in this one. And Hilary Swank is the naive detective who's on the case with Pacino. She's good. There's a lot of supporting actors like Nicky Katt who are also good in the background, who tend to pop up in films with directors who like them. You know, it's one of those kind of actors who are not big stars, but they're well liked and well used by lots of interesting directors. That kind of thing. The film's populated with that kind of thing throughout. And it's a really well made film. It's just one of those things that it's not as showy as some of the other Nolan films. There's a great sequence within it where the Pacino's under logs. He's trying to chase Williams on logs, and he falls under, and the logs are above him. He's trying to get air. It's really well done. And it's funny thing is, the Wolverine Origins did that kind of sequence with logs. They did it on land with logs flying all over the place with a mega budget, and it wasn't even near as good as this thing, which was done basically done much lower budget, much simpler, but actually gave the impression of claustrophobia and slowly dying. So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like a director knowing what he's got and what he can use. So these are really strong films, actually, but they're both flawed. I mean, Following's flawed by its plotting in the middle section. Insomnia's flawed only by it's set up as pretty much, there's no big reveal, there's no big gadgets, there's no weird time thing going on. Its flaw is basically its predictability, in the sense of you can know where it's going, but it's really well told and it's really well made to get you there. So it's that thing of, it's done well, it's a story you've seen before. It's very influenced by 40s noir, 40s, 50s noir, where we have a protagonist who's doomed and he doesn't know it yet. It's just a sense of, it's a noir film but set in the light rather than the dark. But it's really well told. It's one of those films you go back to and you go, oh, that's a lot better than I remember. That's actually a really solid film. We should make more of that. So it's that kind of nicely surprising film. So they're both definitely worth watching. Insomnia's stronger though. Following, there's more signs of, you can see a director who was going to come onto his own, but not quite yet. So that's the thing, is you can see the talent but not all the execution. Insomnia is much better. I got this Insomnia from Amazon France. You can't get it in Britain. You can only get the standard definition blue DVD. The Blu-ray you can get in Amazon France. And I got this fairly cheap. So if you're interested, Amazon France, you can get it quite cheaply. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back with another video soon. And that's me for now. Bye.